Assalamu alaikum. Welcome for today's lesson. Our lesson today is Constitution. It is your Unit 4, lesson number 3. You can find this lesson on page number 133 of your student book. Lesson objectives are explain what a constitution is and why a country needs a constitution. Investigate how a constitution can be changed or amended, and understand that the Quran and Sunnah form the constitution of Saudi Arabia. Our first question today is that what is a constitution? Basically, as you know that in a society, almost every society, we need laws and regulations to keep the society controlled, and humans should be have a behavior which shows that they are not brutal, they are not disorganized, they are not doing the things that are bringing harms to the societies. So to organize the behavior of the people, we need laws and regulations, and if there are no punishments against the violation of these laws, everybody will do the violation. So in order to keep the people controlled, we make laws, and to keep the people within controls, we clearly define the punishments against the violation of these laws. So basically, a constitution is a set of laws, a basic set of laws that runs a society, that runs a state, or you can say that runs a country, and it clearly defines the obligations of the citizens as well as the obligations and the powers of the government, what are the rights of the citizens, how the system of the government will operate, what are the procedures to elect a government, what are the procedures to remove or to reform a government, what are the powers that are allotted to different departments within the state infrastructure. So basically, constitution is a basic set of laws that clearly explains the performance, or you can say how a country or how a state will perform its various functions. The rulers are elected usually under the constitutional methods which are clearly defined in the constitution. Similarly, in a constitution, we have the rights and liberties of people that are guaranteed. For example, in American Constitution, the clause of the American Constitution says that people have natural rights which the government has to protect them. Now, this one line is sufficient to actually confirm that all the rights that belong to human beings naturally are the responsibility of state to be protected. So, Constitution basically clearly defines that what are the responsibilities of citizens and what are the responsibilities of state. So here this line actually clearly tells you the explanation of the set of laws that outline how a country should be governed and give details of the rights and responsibilities of the government as well as the citizens, is usually called a constitution. So this is how the constitution basically keeps working. This slide actually tells us the first few lines of the American Constitution, which says that we, the people of United States, in order to form a more perfect union. Now, just this word actually clearly explains itself that what does mean by perfect union when in a society nobody makes harm to any other, they follow the laws, they follow the regulations, and anybody who tries to avoid the law or who tries to violate the law will be punished according to the defined procedures. So it says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, peace within the society, provide for the common defense, yani the society will be defended. This job of the defense will be given to the state on our behalf, so state will protect us, promote the general welfare, everybody will be given protection and opportunities for the prosperity, and secure the blessings of liberty. So all the liberties that the people have by birth, by nature, they should be protected. To ourselves and our posterity do ordain and establish this constitution. Now they actually people They confirm that the Constitution of the United States is responsible to organize the society and to achieve the goals that are clearly defined in this clause. So basically, these lines are called the preamble of the Constitution of the United States. So from here you can see that what is the basic concept of a constitution. It is a set of laws which basically uh, defines how the country will perform or how the state will perform its basic functions. Our new slide is about the Constitution of Medina. As you know that just like any other country, the Constitution of Medina was also prepared under the leadership of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, and it laid the foundation of a state which actually clearly defined how the state of Medina will perform its job, what are the responsibilities of the state of Medina, what are the rights of the people in the state of Medina. So this, you can say, the lines here actually clearly explain that how the state was established. The Constitution of Medina was known as Watiqat al-Medina or the Medina Charter. It is one of the oldest constitution. It says that the slide says that before the Prophet Muhammad drew the Constitution of Medina, there was much fighting between the tribes of Medina. Even though they were Muslims, they used to fight. But once Prophet Muhammad migrated from Mecca to Medina and he laid down the first Islamic state, the constitution was created. The rules were laid down in front of everyone. So people were supposed to follow the rules, and anybody who was found guilty of violating the rule was subject to the imposition of punishment, which was already defined in the constitution. So this slide clearly tells you that the constitution was designed to govern the relations between the groups and bringing them together as a single society or a single unified ummah. So this was the starting of, or this was the beginning of the Islamic State under the leadership of Prophet Muhammad. Next slide, you will see that what were the salient features. Here it says that some of the terms of the Medina Charter, they were that how the community will perform, what are the basic concepts of community. Everybody is equal, everybody is member, how the community should be secured from the invasion. So this is the first major term, the security of the community. Then it says that everybody should have religious freedom. Muslims have no right to force the others to be Muslims or why they are living in a Muslim society. So Islam or Islamic State, the constitution under the Prophet Muhammad clearly defined that the Muslims have no objection of a non-Muslim living in a Muslim state. So it says that religious freedom will be granted and religious toleration will be there. It says that the tax system will be introduced. Everybody has to pay the tax make the government be capable of performing its jobs. Because without the money or without the capital, you can say the government cannot perform. Capital here in the sense mean the financial resources. So they introduced the tax system. For Muslims it was zakat, for non-Muslims it was jizya. Jizya was a kind of a protection money in which the non-Muslims were protected in a Muslim state. Then it says that within the country or within the Islamic State, the community must remain safe. People should not have interference into another's affairs. There should be no violence and no weapons should be used within the society. Kind and just treatment towards the prisoners of war. Particularly, this is one of the most important term, and you can see that right from the start, Islam says that prisoners of war are not criminals. They cannot be treated as criminal. For example, if a prisoner is taken in the war, he should not be executed after the war once he has put down his weapons, because he is not criminal. So you cannot kill him just because you saw him killing a Muslim in front of you. No, it was a war. So Muslims were fighting, non-Muslims were fighting. In the end of the war, you got a non-Muslim as a prisoner. So you cannot execute him just because you saw him killing a Muslim. No, he is not a criminal. He's a prisoner of war. So he should be treated under the war terms, and you cannot treat him as a criminal. Similarly, in a Muslim state, the constitution says that there should be loyalty and cooperation between the Muslims of different tribes. These social groups should live in harmony, and they should be loyal to the state, and there should be peaceful coexistence. The disputes should be resolved in a peaceful way through negotiation. So this was one of the basic concept of the Charter of Medina, which actually laid foundation for the future grand empire that ruled for a long time, although it fragmented later on somewhere in 1258. But even until now, you can say the fundamental concept of constitution in Islam is one of the most brilliant as compared to the other concepts of constitutions around the world. Next, this slide actually tells us that how the principles in a constitution they are prepared, or how a constitution work. Basically, as we just discussed before, that a constitution is a document that outlines the basic laws of a state. Every law is not part of the constitution. For example, one clause says that the citizens of the country have all the natural rights guaranteed. When this clause is part of the constitution, it includes all the laws that are related to fundamental natural rights of the citizens. For example, the right of prosperity, the right of life, the right of birth, the right of faith, the right of job, the right of movement. So all the individual laws are not mentioned one by one, only one clause is mentioned, so it clearly covers everything. So a constitution generally outlines the system of the government, how the government will perform, and what are the powers of the government, what are the three branches, and what are their jurisdictions: legislature, executive, and judiciary. Right? It includes, or you can say, in a constitution, and the powers of every department of the state are clearly defined. Separation of powers is usually clearly explained. The constitution usually also outlines how these three branches of the government relate to each other. Yani demarcation of power. What are the obligations of the state towards the citizens? Many modern constitutions also contain a guarantee, as we just discussed before, that the constitution of a country clearly guarantees the citizens' rights, which cannot be ignored or which cannot be compromised. In a constitution, actually, the issues that are related to national safety and security are also outlined. Particularly, the defense ministries are given prominence, how the defense of the country will be implemented. Similarly, the constitution gives many details of what is to happen in case of war, how the constitution of the country will perform, how the emergency will be treated in a country if there is a case of civil war, or any threat from outside or inside, how the constitution in a country will perform. This is what the main outlook of the constitution is. This slide tells you the procedure how a constitution can be amended. In almost all of the countries, not almost, surely all of the countries have their constitutions. Every country is run by a constitution, but every country has its own procedure which can be different from place to place, to how to amend a constitution, how to bring changes into a constitution. For example, the Constitution of United States was first prepared in 1787. Since then, it has gone through many changes, but all these changes were brought through a procedure that has already been agreed, that this is the procedure we can bring any change into any law. So there are almost 27 amendments in the Constitution of America so far. Why there are so few constitutional changes in American Constitution? The reason is the procedure to bring a constitutional change is so rigid that it is very difficult to implement. That's why people of America prefer to follow the original constitution. They don't bring too many changes in their constitution. Whereas if you see the constitution of many other countries, there are so many changes. For example, in British Constitution, there are changes from time to time, and these changes were introduced in a very simple way. They have a very different procedure to implement a change into the constitution of a country. In most countries, like Britain, for example, they use the procedure of referendum, asking from the public whether this law should be changed or replaced or amended, any situation that they are facing with. So they follow the procedure of referendum to bring a change into the basic constitution of a country. For example, the referendum is followed in Switzerland, in Australia, in France, in Spain, in Britain. There are so many countries with this example. Just like many other countries, Saudi Arabia also has a constitution, which is the basic or the core concept how the state of Saudi Arabia will perform its function. You must know that the basic constitution of Saudi Arabia is the Quran and the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anything which is conflicting to these two in the country will automatically be standing null and void. Yani any law which conflicts Quran or Sunnah will automatically stand zero. So this means that the government of Saudi Arabia derives all the authority from Quran and the Sunnah. And anything which is not clearly mentioned in Quran and Sunnah, then there is a system of Shura which actually discusses the possibility of how to create a law which is not clearly explained in Quran and Sunnah. So the Quran and Sunnah are there, but they are not closed books. They are open chapters. They can get guidance from Quran and Sunnah, and anything which is not mentioned in these two can be discussed in the Majlis Shura or the Parliament. So they have their own institution also, which is responsible to make laws in according to the teachings of Islam. Even the Shura cannot create a law which is in conflict with Quran, or you can say with the Sunnah. So anything that conflicts in with Quran and Sunnah will automatically stand zero. For example, here is one of the most glorious hadiths from Prophet Muhammad. He said, I leave two things with you. One is the Quran and one is my Sunnah. If you hold two of these strongly, you will never be disappointed and you will never be going astray. Astray mean a directionless nation. You will not lose your direction. You will not lose your destination. So you will not be lost in a place where you are unable to find the way. So in a Muslim society, for Muslims, the two prominent, or you can say the glorious sources of laws are Prophet Muhammad's Sunnah and Quran. And still, these are not the closed chapters. We still have the Islam allows us, Islam permits us to make the laws according to the teachings of Quran and Sunnah in our society. So the parliament system, or you can say the shura system, is also a possibility in a Muslim society, which is responsible to create laws according to the time and situation. In 1992, King Fahd bin Abdulaziz issued a royal decree about Nizam. Basically, the decree of Nizam is about how the government will perform its day-to-day responsibilities, what are the powers of the state, what are different procedures involved. The details are on the next slide. Let's move on to next slide. So the Nizam actually gives us the picture of how the state of Saudi Arabia will be governed. This is the first major outlook of the Nizam, that how the country will be performing its responsibilities, what kind of constitution it will be following, Quran and Sunnah. Then the constitution, or you can say the Nizam, clearly explains the structure of the government. Yani it will be a monarchy. What is the succession system or the procedure of replacing a king, and the principle of a baya. Baya is actually taking an oath that you are you agree that I acknowledge that this guy is going to be a king, or it's a king. I acknowledge him as a king. So it's called baya. So when the king took over the power, all the royal family members, they take the oath, and even the ordinary citizens, they also they take oath that we acknowledge that king of Saudi Arabia is uh, at the moment whoever holds the office. Similarly, the Nizam clearly defines the values of the Saudi society. According to the teachings of Islam, the concepts of family and national unity. It also defines the economic principles, which is based on Sharia, the management of resources, natural resources, the citizens' right to have a property, and the collection of zakat and taxation. As a whole, the Nizam also, you can say, clearly defines the rights and obligations of the citizens as well as the state. It also clearly defines the judicial system, executive system, and regulatory system of the country. Judicial system mean the way in which the criminal laws will be implemented in the country. Executive means the way the government will have exercise its powers, and what are other regulatory measures that are necessary in the country to bring order and organization. So it says that and the ways in which they should cooperate and act under the leadership of the king. So the Nizam actually clearly recognizes that the ruler of the country will be a king. Then it also clearly defines the financial affairs, including how the state revenue is to be managed, where it should be utilized, how it should be collected, what are the general principles regarding the international treaties. Every country, in this world, they are part of the international community. Just as we human beings cannot live alone, an isolated life, a country also cannot survive by having a policy of isolation. So in day-to-day activities, all the countries, they need to interact, to have relationship with other countries. The government of a country actually is a representative, where it signs, or where it makes, you can say, dealings, or you can say agreements with other countries, which are, once they signed, they become binded. So then once you sign an agreement, then you cannot say, okay, I did not sign and I will not follow the terms that I agreed. Once you agree on a term, you have to follow, and you have to commit yourself to that. So same is the case. A country makes the agreements, they are signed, and once they are signed, the country has to abide by the terms that are agreed in that agreement. So this is called Nizam in Saudi Arabia. Just like many other countries, the Nizam in Saudi Arabia is fundamental, or you can say the core of Saudi constitution. And on this, the Saudi system of the government performs its various responsibilities in day-to-day jobs. I hope the question, the topic is understandable, and it is up to you. You can revise again and again, and if you have any questions still, you can come back to me in Schoology. Until next week, see you.